Hello everyone, welcome back to Organic Intelligence. Today I'm joined by William. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. So I'm William. I'm the co-president of LPLS this year. Additionally, I'm working in some other things as well, like the ASUC. But before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Sam. We met through a mutual friend, and now he's running this podcast. So it's so great to see Sam. Sam's always been a above and beyond guy. So yeah, props to you, Sam.
Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. So you talked a little bit about being co-president of LPLS, and so what does that look like? And what is LPLS for people that don't know?
Yeah, definitely. I think LPLS is one of those organizations that is on the comeback. It was founded in 2002, so back in the day. It's been a little bit, and recently I'm going to give a big shout out to my the co-execs or co-presidents that came before me because they did such a fantastic job of really bringing the club back. I think engagement and people sticking with the club skyrocketed all of last year, and I think that that's something that going into this year, me and my co-president Danielle Lopez, we're really focusing on. We wanted to make sure that LPLS keeps that steady growth going, and so I think that one of the ways we're doing that is really making sure that we're putting on events and putting on these pre-professional opportunities and in career side of the law, not just the academic side, is also the networking with attorneys. There's going to law firms, law schools, talking with deans. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work to get you ready for that journey that is law school, and that's what we focus on. So we're a pre-professional opportunity. And like I said, we do a lot of things from socials that any other RSO would do, but we also like to go out and venture into law schools like UC Davis, Stanford. Those are our two big ones. We have some upcoming aspirations of making it to SoCal, to USC and UCLA. But I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I'm super proud of the club and super happy to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're taking on such a big leadership role in a club that helps Berkeley students with pre-law and pre-professional opportunities. What inspired you to take on a career heading toward the law, like become a lawyer?
Definitely, yeah. I think it's really funny because all of my life I was aspiring to become an architect. I grew up with my dad working in contracting and construction work, and so I think that seeing him run a business and seeing all these aspects that goes into landscaping and construction, I was super set on like, okay, I want to work on the behind the scenes stuff of that, designing, planning, all of these components that go into not even landscape architecture, but just architecture in general. So I think I was super set on that since I think elementary school. I was like, I'm gonna do that, and I'm super set on it. And then I got to high school and I took these like more difficult math classes, AP Calculus. I was like, well, maybe we can do something else. And I think that the 2020 election happened, and obviously we were on lockdown. It was during the COVID pandemic, and I think that I was just so engaged, and I was taking these AP classes like AP U.S. History and AP Government, while all of this political turmoil was going on, and I think that really inspired me. Where I'm like, okay, this is a field, a career that you can make a lot of direct difference. Not that architecture isn't, but I think that you find like I found my passion along the way, and I think that a lot of people do. People come to college and they end up changing their major or doing something that they didn't originally intend. And I think that's fantastic. I think you live and you learn, right? And so I think that just having really found my passion, I think that's what sort of drives me to continue with LPLS and in the law and pursuing a career as hopefully one day an attorney. The goal is law school, obviously, but I think just there's a lot of factors right now from the political turmoil going on beyond Berkeley, and just a lot of things that are sort of not barriers, but make it a little bit more difficult. But I think that these difficulties, if anything, should be a challenge to overcome. I like to say that to go through something, you have to get over it, right? And so I think that working towards these goals, I think us like Latina students are historically marginalized. We've sort of been relegated to the pages of history when it comes to a career in politics or the legal field. And so I think it's really important that we provide these opportunities. And I think that it's been my highlight or a highlight of my career here at Berkeley, being able to provide these resources for students.
Awesome. And I think it's incredibly like interesting how I've had other people on the podcast talking about how during the time of lockdown and the change that was happening then inspired them. And so it's really interesting to hear your perspective on it. And so that kind of touches upon like my next question. You're a senior, right? And so what does that look like preparing for law school?
Yeah, so a lot of people, not myself, but a lot of people go through what's called like the kindergartner through JD or K through JD, where you go straight from elementary school to the end of law school. And I think that that's major props to them. But I think a majority of people actually, I don't know the numbers, but I think a majority of people end up taking at least one gap year. And it's recommended by law schools. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be taking at least one gap year. One gap year is the goal. And I'll be working, studying for the LSAT. People say it's a gap year, but it's not really a gap year. You're prepping for the LSAT, which is the big test to get into law school, and you're working, saving up money for law school, and building your resume as much as you can. So when the time does come to apply for law school, which in my timeline would be next fall, so right after the summer I graduate, I would have to be ready almost to apply basically. So there's not really much of a gap year, but it is a gap year in terms of I wouldn't be going straight to law school. So I think right now I'm just searching for public service opportunities. The Institute for Governmental Studies, they provide a lot of great opportunities, so I highly recommend them, especially if you're a graduating senior. I think they do provide either in-state, local, or federal level opportunities that a lot of students should take advantage of, and I think that a lot of students aren't aware of them. And I heard from a professor and from some other friends who have gone through the program, so I'm checking that out. I know a lot of other graduating seniors as well, so highly recommend that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, touching upon that note of like professional aspirations, we were going through your LinkedIn, and I noticed that you were a summer intern for the city of West Sacramento.
Yeah.
And so, what does that look like, and what were you doing like on the day to day?
Yeah, so it's actually really funny because I have a lot of family in Sacramento, so I'm up there all the time, and so I've always seen West Sacramento as sort of a neighborhood of Sacramento, or a sort of a part of Sacramento, but it's really its own city. It's its own bustling, huge city with a lot of up and coming prospects. I think my day to day looked like working with the community. There's a lot of projects and small businesses that are opening up. So not only consulting with the city side, what's going on with these projects, how can we best undertake them, how can we make sure that we're staying on schedule, checking in with the financial side, with the rules and regulations side, but also checking in with the people directly impacted. I think a lot of small businesses benefit from the help of the city, and so a lot of my work looked like reaching out to these small businesses and to community members and getting their opinions on the projects that the city is working on. And just there's a lot of, like anything, a lot of meetings that you would have to attend day to day. I got to explore really the ins and outs of city politics. I got to meet with the mayor, with the city council, the police chief, the fire chief, public works, parks and rec. So many departments that you don't really realize go into to running a city. And I think that inspired me that right now I'm actually working with Councilmember Luna Parra for District 7, which is Berkeley's district, to continue my work with local politics. I think that local politics, as I've learned, is the best way. I mean, I think the closer you are to a community, the more impact you can directly make. And so I've sort of chosen to stuck with city politics just because it's so directly connected and tethered to the community, and you can see your impact like on an instantaneous level. So city work is fantastic. I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to continuing that in the future.
So during the application process, applying to these internships, what are some things that you put on your resume or some experiences that you think helped you stand out amongst the crowd?
Yeah, I think that there's no set formula, right? I think a lot of people apply to them and they're selected for what makes them them. I like to say that we all have similar backgrounds but different experiences, and I think that's totally true when you're applying to internships or any work really. So I don't know if there's a set formula, but I think I was just super authentic. I expressed my interest in public service. I think I've devoted my entire career to public service and would like to continue public service. And I expressed that starting at the local level is a good jumping point to later, eventually the goal is state or federal level public service, either as an attorney or through public office or something like that. But I think just being authentic, really highlighting why your experiences have crafted you into the person you are today, either the student or the professional you are today. And I think just what you took away and what you would like to do with that. I think that's super impactful in an application. But I think I really talked about my work with the ACC. City government and the ACC function a lot in terms of how they work on the administrative side. So departments, meetings, check-ins, all of that, sort of the bureaucratic side of processes. So there is a lot of overlap. So I got to talk about that and how my experience would set me up to do well in a city internship. But I think that just really speak to your experiences and why you think you'd be a good fit for that job.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so kind of going back in time a little bit and talking about the application process to universities, people right now, high schoolers are submitting their applications to colleges at the moment, they're a few days away before the deadline.
Yeah.
And so what are some things that you put on your application, like your PIQs? What are some ways that you sold yourself and to the universities?
Definitely. I think that a lot of what I talked about was sort of what, you have to think about it for a long time. You can't just wait until you're writing these essays and hope that something pops in. I think that the writing is the easy part. The hard part is really like letting the thoughts simmer and letting everything kind of cook in the back of your head. And by the time you get there, you're like, okay, I know why my experiences, like I was talking about, even for the application for an internship or a job, why my experiences would make me an apt candidate for this university. And I think what I talked about was I had a lot of extracurriculars, and I was president of the Honor Society, and so I got to talk a lot about that. It was very similar to what I'm doing in LPLS today, and really the impact and building back after COVID. I think there was a lot of work with school and administration, so I got to talk about that and how education has been such a big part of my life as a first generation student. And I think that something else I touched on that we had previously talked about was how the pandemic, and despite the pandemic, I should say, I was still trying to remain civically engaged. One of the categories that you're evaluated on in high school in order to graduate is civic engagement. And I think I really highlighted that because I worked with some friends to create an organization that checked in with local leaders, and just we did our best to sort of update the community and see what was going on. And like I talked about the election, so it was a lot of these personal things that I got to talk about. I talked about learning a third language and what that entailed, and how 4 years really changes the way you think, as well as I think what was the most influential essay, in my opinion, what I think was the most hard hitting was talking about my experience as a first generation student whose parents didn't have an opportunity to attend university, let alone grandparents who immigrated to this country some years ago, and just talking about that experience and how that's been such a huge motivation and such something that powers me and keeps me going, and how that would continue in college, and what that means for me as someone coming to the #1 public university.
Upon arriving on campus, some people find it difficult to find community. So what are some things that worked for you, and what are some groups that you joined when first arriving?
Yeah, I think that coming into college, you kind of expect oh, I'm at college. There's not much I have to do now. But I think it's quite the opposite. I think it sort of only speeds up in terms of getting involved. I think the one piece of advice I could give once you come to college, obviously focus on academics. That's why you're here, right? But I think that finding community is the most important thing for sure. And I think freshman year, I kind of lacked on that a little bit. Some people come here and they're straight away get involved and get into it. But I think it wasn't until sophomore year where I really started to get involved with the ASUC and the Latina Caucus. And I think that's where I found my community. Obviously, like I said, a lot of people with similar backgrounds but different experiences, and just getting to know them, and sort of the joint struggle that we share, that is navigating college, a lot of us as first generation undergrads. But also, there's a lot of work to be done at the university level and beyond. And I think that Student Politics is a great way to start that. I recommend to check it out at least for a year, and then if you find it's not for you, definitely step back and reorient yourself. I think that later on, that's what I did, where I was like, I enjoyed my time with Student Politics, but I think that really the most change and the most community can be found at these RSO level foundations, and that's really where I think I've been able to make the most difference. Not that I haven't not that I think that I haven't made a contribution through Student Politics, but I think that it's a very gratifying to see the work and talking directly with these members of your organization, and seeing how you're directly impacting them, and how these resources are really changing them for the better. But yeah, I think that just getting involved, finding community, it doesn't have to be people of the same majors. I think that a lot of us, we're different majors, but somehow come together. And I think that there's also like a big social aspect to it. A lot of my good friends I met through these organizations, and I would consider them really good friends, friends with people I met sophomore year to this day. So definitely don't underestimate the value of just putting yourself out there and giving it your all. And I think that's all any of us can really do, right?
Awesome. So you touched upon how putting yourself out there is really important. So how important has your network been to your college career, like so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, I'm a lot of these people I met through these organizations, like the ASUC, and shout out to LLS and LPLS. These are the people that you're hearing, and they're going out like, oh, I'm working this is something that's fantastic, and that person knows someone, and that person knows someone else, and you meet all these people, and like I met you through Eric, a mutual friend, and that's just the way it works. And I think it's just so important. People often say that college isn't about what you know. That's debatable, but it's really about who you know. And I think that there's some validity to that, where it definitely like you meet this person, and they might be like, oh, I know this person, and I'd love to introduce you and set you up. And I think that's how I've met a lot of people. Going into LPLS, I didn't know a lot of people. I was a general member beginning freshman year, and then I got on the board junior year and decided to run, and obviously I was successful in that and super proud of that. But really, I didn't meet a lot of these people until junior year, and wasn't friends with them, but you become friends with them really quickly. And now that a lot of them have graduated and they're off doing fantastic things, and you're super proud to call them your friends, and seeing what they're doing out in the world is like mind-boggling at times. Like, wow, like I can't believe I know that person. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic what they're doing, and I think that these networks are also super motivating. They help you continue to put one foot in front of the other and keep going. I think that the best part about community here at Berkeley is that we all try to help each other out, and I think that recently there was Mercadito, and I think that that's one of the prime examples of it, where we all come together and for like the betterment of our clubs, our clubs get to fundraise, and the ACC helps on the planning side. And I think that I think building your network is super important, not even just within campus, but beyond campus as well. I think that if you take an internship, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think I talked to more people this past summer than I think I've ever talked to before. Just walking into their office, introducing yourself. I actually just did that on one of the last few days of the internship. I walked into the city manager's office because he had mentioned he was a political science graduate from UC Berkeley. And I told them, well, what a coincidence. I'm also going to UC Berkeley for political science. And I got to talk to him about what his experience entailed here and the next steps after college. And he was great guidance. And he said, oh, I have a lot of friends from back where you're from, where I'm from, and I'd love to connect you with the city of Sonoma and the city of Petaluma. And I think it's fantastic. Like you never know who someone knows, and I think it's just nice to be able to call someone someone that and see where that might lead you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So kind of doubling back a little bit, going back to your work in the ASUC, what are some specific projects that you've worked on in the past, and what are some things that are coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Beginning my journey with ASUC, I actually started as a chief of staff intern to Senator Jimenez back in the day. Shout out Senator Jimenez. who's actually now, touching again on the networking part. She's now a special assistant to Senator Schiff for the state of California. So she's working in D.C. right now, and she totally killing it out there. And that's why it's super important to network. Just to bring that up. So I started as a chief of staff intern to her office, and then at the same time I was a community engagement associate for Senator Bianca Torres. At the time, they served together, and there was a lot of obviously, like the name entails, community engagement, fundraisers and tailgates, and just even working the social media. So there was that. And then that same year, towards the end of the year, I got recruited for my friend Robert Carrillo's executive vice president. He was running for executive vice president, and I had expressed my interest in, I had told him I want to be an attorney someday, and I love law and government, and he offered me the position of campaign legal affairs director, and I continued my work through that. And then I actually didn't continue in his office. I continued in Senator Franco's office the next year as a policy research exec. So there we were drafting bills. We actually drafted the most bills out of anyone that year, I believe. Not sure if they were passed, but I think we had the most drafted and proposed that year, at least. I forget if it was 10 or 11. And just unfortunately the way it works, it's a very complicated and tedious process, and sometimes those bills have to carry over into the next legislative year. And so after that, I continued my work helping out. I know we worked on a campaign together for Senator Nicole, who's currently serving. I continued my work there as a campaign attorney. I helped out some other friends who were running for positions, including Senator Kiana, who we work for right now. Again, as legal attorney or legal campaign director. And then right now, I'm serving as a senior policy advisor to the legal team in Senator Kiana's office, which I know you're also a part of. And yeah, so I think it totally touches back. I think the ASUC touches back to the point of networking where, people come together and, no matter where you come from, you kind of meet together to make this outputting change into the community. So yeah, I think I lost track. I don't know if you're keeping track, but there's a lot of offices that I worked in. So I think that, yeah, I've done a lot with the ASUC and super proud of the ASUC, and I think that they do a lot. Yeah.
Being involved in so many things and academics, extracurriculars, and internships, how do you balance all of it, and how do you make time for yourself?
I think that's the $1 million question, right? I think it's super important to. I think we touched on it a little bit, but the social aspect of these groups, just spending time with them, even if you're studying, doing it with them, keep yourself accountable and check with them, and I think that something I like to do is get away from campus. Luckily I'm close enough to home where I can drive home every now and again, just to kind of, forget about the stresses a little bit about university and campus life. So I think that, yeah, just spending time with people that you're really fond about, taking that time for yourself is super important. I think my way of doing that is going home, hiking. I'm a huge hiker, and luckily back home there's a lot of places to hike. Yeah, I think that oftentimes you kind of go, just don't stop, internship, classes, RSO, student politics. And I think that sometimes I have to take a step back and think okay, we can kind of, take it easy for a weekend every now and then. But yeah, I think just making sure you're carving time out for yourself is super important.
So touching upon that note, what are some fun college stories that you've had happen?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, if you're busy with something, even just spending it with friends is a good way to, it's a good balance. I think that working on these campaigns, it's a lot of work. There is a lot of behind the scenes work to help out someone running for a position. But I think that working as a team, there's a lot of fun in that. You're filming campaign videos and you're meeting, and it's people you're pretty close with. I mean, if you're campaigning with them, there's probably a reason why. And so I think that I don't have a specific story, but I think just looking back, campaigns have been sort of a very fun yet rewarding aspect of my time here at Berkeley. There's a lot of late nights and early mornings, but I think that if you do it with people that you call friends and whatnot, I think it makes it just a little bit more bearable. Pun intended, bearable. Yeah, I'm blanking on like a good story, but I think just finding the balance while you're doing something tedious to doing something fun is the way to go about it.
So my last question to you, everything has been so insightful, and I thank you so much for taking the time. What is one piece of advice that you would give a version of your younger self if they were watching this?
Yeah, wow, that's a question as well. I think we touched on it. I think just finding community, finding people who you can relate to in a lot of aspects. I think academics is super important in college. Definitely, I would tell myself to lock in just a little bit more. But definitely, I mean, you have the benefit of hindsight now and how you get to these things like an honors program and writing a thesis, which is what I'm currently working on. But yeah, I think finding community and just giving it your all. I know it's super cliche, but I think it is super impactful. I think that Berkeley is super demanding academically, but there's a good balance that you find within these communities to make it worthwhile and if you can give it your all, even better, right? I think that it kind of couples, right, where it's like if you're giving it your all in academics, you're giving it your all in these communities you're a part of, and I think that it kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you going. So I think that yeah, finding community and just whatever you do, fully commit to it. I think that at the end of the day, you'll look back and be super proud of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the
Yeah.
time to
Well,
take
thank you,
this
Sam.
interview.
It was a pleasure.
I appreciate you
Yeah.
having me on. And we'll see you guys in the next one.